Victim playing. Victim playing is not weakness, it's warfare disguised as fragility. It's the art of turning guilt into control, of turning tears into a leash around your empathy. They don't seek comfort, they seek power. They weaponize their wounds until you start treating their pain like your responsibility. It begins with trembling words. I guess I'm just never enough. They sigh, retreat, let their voice break just enough to pierce your guard. You feel that instinct, the one that wants to fix, protect, soothe. But what you're actually doing is surrendering your boundaries to a performance. The brilliance of victim playing is that it rewrites reality. Their betrayal becomes your overreaction. Their cruelty becomes a defense. Their manipulation turns into a misunderstanding. And you, the one who simply asked for honesty, become the villain in their tragedy. Empathy becomes your weakness. Guilt becomes your chain. You start apologizing to keep the peace, censoring your truth to avoid their tears. You stop asking for accountability and start begging for forgiveness you never owed. It works because guilt overrides reason. Watching someone crumble feels unbearable, even when it's staged. And so you trade truth for comfort, self-respect for temporary calm. But their collapse is a tactic, not a cry for help. They don't need to win the argument. They just need you to feel sorry enough to stop fighting back. And by the time you realize it, pity has already replaced logic, and you've been disarmed by compassion. False consensus trick. This one is subtle and cruel. The manipulator doesn't tell you you're wrong, they make you believe everyone else already thinks you are. They'll say things like, "Everyone feels that way about you," or "Most people agree you're overreacting." Simple words, but psychologically devastating. Because the human mind fears one thing more than being wrong: being alone. We are tribal creatures, wired to belong. And when someone convinces you that your thoughts, your emotions, or your boundaries are out of sync with the group, you don't argue back, you start to doubt yourself. They don't need evidence, just implication. Invisible allies, imaginary crowds. People who somehow always agree with them. People who never seem to exist beyond their stories. But you feel their presence anyway. You hear their silence in your head. And you start shrinking yourself just to avoid being the odd one out. That's the genius of this trick. They don't isolate you physically, they isolate you mentally. They turn your own social instinct into a weapon against you. You stop defending your truth not because you're convinced they're right, but because you're afraid to be wrong alone. The false consensus trick doesn't change your opinion. It makes you afraid to have one. Deliberate misinterpretation. This is not a misunderstanding. It's precision sabotage. You speak and they twist it. You clarify and they distort it. Every word becomes new ammunition for their next accusation. You say, "I felt hurt when you ignored me." They reply, "So I'm the villain now?" You say, "I need space." They call it abandonment. You're not arguing with a person anymore. You're fighting the distorted version of yourself they've created. They build a straw man and set it on fire while you stand there wondering how the truth got lost in translation. It's psychological erosion. Every time they twist your words, your mind scrambles to explain, to defend, to repair. But the more you explain, the deeper the trap becomes. They don't want clarity. They want chaos, because confusion makes you compliant. Eventually, you start editing yourself, speaking softly, carefully, mechanically, until silence feels safer than honesty. That's the goal, to make you so terrified of being misunderstood that you stop expressing yourself at all. Because when they control how your words are interpreted, they don't need to silence you. you'll do it yourself. Anchoring negative emotions. This is psychological conditioning, emotional programming masked as relationship dynamics. The manipulator pairs your joy with punishment, your freedom with fear. They make you associate peace with danger, happiness with humiliation. So you learn to flinch when you smile. You learn to brace for impact every time you feel okay. They ruin your best moments on purpose. They start fights after you laugh. They withdraw when you succeed. They go cold after intimacy. Your nervous system learns happiness equals pain. Self-expression equals conflict. Success equals loneliness. You begin to avoid the things that make you feel alive, not because you want to, but because your body remembers what comes next. That's anchoring, turning love into a trigger, joy into tension, and peace into panic. The worst part? You start to believe it's you, that you're too sensitive, too dramatic, too difficult. But it's not you, it's your instincts, rewired by repetition. Anchoring doesn't require threats or shouting, just patterns. And once the pattern is learned, they don't need to hurt you anymore. You'll hurt yourself every time you feel happy. That's not control. That's psychological captivity dressed as love. Ingratiation. It feels like affection, but it's a setup. They praise you, study you, mirror you. They call you brilliant, kind, extraordinary. They remember the smallest things about you, and it feels real, like connection, like chemistry. But it's not love, it's reconnaissance. Ingratiation is the manipulation of admiration. Every compliment is a rope, every act of kindness a knot. They build trust through flattery, then tighten it the moment you resist. They don't want your heart, they want your compliance. And the easiest way to control someone is to make them feel seen. You start to trust them because they seem to understand you. But they're not giving, they're gathering. Every gesture, every "I've got you," every "you're special" is an investment. And eventually, they'll want their return. When that day comes, refusing won't feel strong, it'll feel cruel. Because they've made you believe that loyalty equals gratitude. The truth is, ingratiation is emotional commerce. They feed your ego so they can feed your obedience. It's not generosity, it's grooming. And the moment you stop being useful, you'll see the warmth vanish and realize it was never admiration, it was leverage. Emotional blackmail. This isn't persuasion, it's psychological extortion. They don't threaten you with violence, they threaten you with pain, with tears, silence, disappointment, all the things you're wired to avoid. They'll say, "If you loved me, you'd do it," or "After everything I've done for you." Every word is soaked in guilt, every phrase a hook. You're not choosing, you're being cornered. They turn your empathy into a weapon, make you responsible for their happiness, their peace, their stability. And when you try to say no, they twist it into betrayal. So you give in, again and again. Not because you agree, but because you're afraid of what happens if you don't. You fear the coldness, the withdrawal, the sudden emotional vacuum they leave behind when you stop playing their game. Over time, you stop saying no altogether. Your boundaries become optional, your needs negotiable. That's emotional blackmail, forcing you to carry their emotions like hostages until you surrender. But real love doesn't make you pay in guilt. Real love doesn't make you beg to breathe. This isn't love. It's manipulation wrapped in affection. And it only ends when you stop mistaking pressure for care. Feigning ignorance. They know exactly what they did, but when you call them out, their memory suddenly vanishes. "I don't remember saying that. You must have misunderstood. Wait, what are you talking about?" That's not confusion, that's control. Feigning ignorance is the silent killer of accountability. It leaves you doing emotional labor just to prove that reality happened. You start explaining, replaying, doubting yourself. You search for proof that you're not losing your mind. Meanwhile, they stand there, calm, blank, innocent. And the more frustrated you become, the more unstable you look. That's the point. They want you exhausted, desperate, questioning your own clarity. So you'll start softening your tone, second-guessing your memory, apologizing just to escape the fog. Feigning ignorance isn't forgetting, it's strategy. It's how manipulators erase guilt while you drown in confusion. And the more believable their blank stare, the more you lose your grip on truth.
They don't need to deny the damage. They just need you to question if it ever happened. Preemptive invalidation. This is how they silence you before you even speak. You take a breath to explain, and they cut you off with, "I already know what you're going to say. It's ridiculous. You're not going to start your drama again, are you?" Preemptive invalidation kills your truth before it's born. They don't need to hear your words. They just label them unworthy in advance. And soon, you stop trying to express anything at all. It's not just dismissal, it's conditioning. They train you to believe that your emotions are always too much, your thoughts always exaggerated. You start editing yourself to avoid being dramatic. You silence your instincts before they even form sentences. They don't win the argument, they delete it from existence. And you, terrified of being the emotional one, the overthinker, start believing their version of you. Preemptive invalidation is psychological suffocation. You begin to internalize their voice as your own, and it whispers, "Don't bother. You're wrong before you even begin." Cognitive load disruption. They don't want to convince you. They want to exhaust you. This tactic floods your mind with so much noise that clarity drowns. Rapid arguments, contradictions, emotional outbursts, guilt, then affection, all at once. You try to respond, but before you can finish one thought, 5 new accusations appear. You're buried under chaos. Your brain short-circuits, too tired to question, too overwhelmed to resist. And that's when they strike. Because exhaustion feels like surrender. Cognitive load disruption is the psychological equivalent of drowning. They overload your senses until silence feels like peace. And when they offer that peace, you mistake it for safety. But you didn't find peace. You were flooded into submission. You didn't choose calm. You were broken into it. And that's exactly what they wanted, for your silence to sound like agreement. Comparative devaluation. They don't insult you directly. They just keep comparing you to someone better. Why can't you be more like her? He never complains like you do. My ex never had a problem with that. Each sentence lands like a quiet incision, deep, precise, unforgettable. And before long, you start competing with ghosts. Comparative devaluation is designed to erode your worth from the inside. It tells you you're not enough, not by shouting, but by constantly praising someone else in your presence. You start working harder to please them, begging for the validation that used to come freely. You start believing love is something you earn, not something you deserve. The manipulator knows this. They keep you insecure so they can keep you compliant. And once in a while, they'll throw you a small compliment, just enough to keep you chasing. It's not love, it's addiction. And the high of finally being enough never lasts, because the pedestal was built for your fall, not your growth. False flattery. This is the sweetest poison of all. They tell you everything you've ever wanted to hear, but every word is hollow, calculated, a tool, not a truth. False flattery is not admiration. It's manipulation disguised as praise. It's how they learn what you crave: attention, validation, approval, and feed it to you until you forget how to survive without it. They'll say, "You're the only one who gets it. You're the smartest here. I've never met anyone like you." And you'll glow because it feels good, it feels real. But it's not about your worth, it's about their control. They're not flattering you, they're grooming you. They build you up just to own the version of you they created. One day you're brilliant, the next you're a disappointment. The whiplash keeps you chasing that first high, desperate to please, desperate to hear the words again. It's not love, it's dependence. You weren't seen, you were studied. And every compliment was a quiet test. How much control can I buy with kindness? That's the dark truth of false flattery. It doesn't feed your confidence, it feeds your captivity.